So our approach to this is going to be twofold. Okay, so let me just ask you a question right off the bat. Like, what is acting, or what is the work that an actor has to do? What is the process? Do you guys have any ideas as to what that entails, or where that process lies? Say, if you look at your Pareto principle, 20-80, right? 80% of work and 20% of work. How do you think that is split up when it comes to the work that an actor does?
I'm assuming it's 50-50.
50-50 in what regard?
As in the work that goes behind the scene and then the rest being, I think.
Okay, right. So in actuality, it'd be something around 80-20 or 90-10 even. Okay. So for whatever role that you're preparing, especially when it comes to theater, for a play, you would probably rehearse for 3 to 4 months, right? And then you would have 1 or 2 shows at max. So right there itself, you realize the kind of effort that you have to put in simply in terms of man hours and the thought that goes into preparing for your role, and then finally putting it up on stage or on screen, right? So the work that an actor puts in, or the acting work that goes into it, is entirely before the curtain goes up or before someone yells action. Okay, and it's that bit, that 90%, that we'll be brushing upon, very just scratching the surface of in this very brief session that we'll be having. The main 2 things that we'll be talking about here: A, that is deciphering text, and the second thing, how to approach a role. And once again, it's not a science, it's not an exact science, it's not mathematics. Okay, I'm just going to be sharing with you guys things that I've picked up along the way. I've been doing this for some time now, and whatever little bit I've been able to pick up, I'm just going to be sharing that with you guys. All right. Have you guys heard of the 3-act structure? Okay. So in simple terms, for any story, you have a setup, you have a conflict, and you have a resolution, right? So you have Nishant met Sana at a coffee place, but Sana came out and said that she was a lesbian. Nishant was shocked, but Nishant came out and said that doesn't matter, we just need to be friends. So you have Nishant and Sana meeting at a coffee shop being your setup. That's the introduction to the story, right? And then you have a conflict, wherein Sana comes out and says that, you know what, I'm gay. And Nishant is like, you know what, that doesn't matter, we can be friends. And that's your resolution, right? So it's a very bad example, but you have your first act, your second act, and your third act, wherein you have a starting, you have a middle, and you have an end. With the meter. So your meter is basically a very neutral meter, is when you are not really feeling or expressing anything, which is just at peace. That's your datum. And anything above or below that tells you how excited or how dulled out your character is, right? By neutral, I don't mean he's like completely dead. He's mentally asleep, right? So if you're happy or angry or of any of those things, your physicality, your voice, your tone, your pitch, everything goes higher, right? But if you're sad, if you're jealous, any of those negative emotions, everything goes lower, right? So right then and there, before you say a single word, you know that your meter has to be a little bit on the higher end. What is the objective of the scene? What is the writer or the director thinking of when they thought up the scene? What did they want to communicate to the audience when they thought up the scene is the objective of the scene. So you see now that there's a dynamic of this power play coming between the 2 of them when you try to stress between the me and the yous. So normally when there are scenes where there is this difference of opinion, it's important to pick up on those words, those keywords, stress words that the writers put in there, so that there is a sense of power dynamics that comes into play. A lot of times what happens is, especially when it's long dialogue, we read lines as though we're saying it to ourselves, as though we're reading it. But the word that Amrita mentioned there, where it's a conversation, is very, very important, right? Because it is a conversation. And whenever we converse with other people, we pause. We speed up at other times when we want to, put a lot of ideas together. We stress on certain words. We slow down our speech. Someone mentioned the word voice modulation. So that's what voice modulation brings in as well. So a hack, again, this is just a hack, is 1 breath equals 1 thought. So look at that paragraph. So here you have, I keep thinking about last night and what I said to him, before. Like if it affected him somehow. I said he couldn't come over this week because your dad called my dad and there was a lot of yelling. And then even after that, I told Harrison that we had to spend some time apart so that people didn't assume. That entire thing is one thought. I mean, he's feeling guilt over there. I keep thinking about last night and blah, 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 all the way till people didn't assume. That's one thought. So here, there's a very interesting thing, right? I keep imagining him listening to me with the phone against his shoulder, using both hands to tie the knots. That's one thought. The second thought starts, he has a piano in his hands, That's the second thought, where he's remembering him. The third thought is one word, had, when he corrects himself. The fourth thought is, I keep thinking, though, maybe if I'd asked him to come over and he might have put it down, he might have walked away. That's the next thought. I don't know is the next thought. There are certain words, and this just comes with saying your lines again and again and again. Some people it comes naturally to them. There's certain words which, when they roll out of your tongue, they give you that split second, just like steal a breath, like a quick. The Y's help with that. And any open mouth, when you go from an open mouth syllable to a closed mouth, when you go from a Y to an R, for example, your roast, you can steal a breath somewhere. When you go from that open mouth to a closed mouth, every scene has a rhythm to it, right? I mean, every scene has a tempo to it, right? Here it's a monologue, so you drive the tempo of that particular scene. The emotions of the scene come out when that tempo increases, when the tempo comes down, right?
Right.
That's where that breath technique helps, right? So when you try to finish a long line of text with a single thought and a single breath, if it's a long train of thought, you will say it faster so that you can finish it within that particular breath, right? And then when it's just like a one word, or when it's just I keep thinking, though, maybe if I'd asked him to come over. Anyway, he might have put it down. He might have walked away. I don't know. So take your time with it. Really take your time with it. Wherever you want to pause, wherever you want to stammer, take your time with it. So I'll just quickly go over whatever we just spoke about. First and foremost, what is the objective of the scene from a storytelling point of view? Secondly, know where your character is coming from and where your character is going. Every good scene has a 3-act structure. Again, every good scene has a 3-act structure. Figure out your character's arc based on the structure of that particular scene, okay? Let the text guide you. The writers drop subtle hints in the dialogue. The spaces, the punctuation marks is an indication as to how the writer or the director hears the dialogue in his head. But that does not mean these have to be followed to the T. These are just indications, once again. Again, sometimes like what we just decided as 5 thoughts in that one paragraph could probably be 7 or 8 if you want to treat it in a different way. But then that's where the work comes in. That's where, as an actor, you need to bring in your creativity. The last thing is about going against the grain. Okay, so this is interesting because this is where you can create something that is truly your own. So that's where, casting is very important, because when you guys are casting for a play or for a short film or whatever, to pick the right actor for the right role is half the job done. But there is no right or wrong way of doing any of these things, because it's not an exact science, right? So bring in your version of that character. And sometimes that would involve you going against the grain. By going against the grain, I mean by breaking all of the indications or all of the guidelines that the writer has put in there for you. What if there is an element of surprise that you have in there, which is traditionally not something that you would expect from that line of text? So that's going against the grain, where you input something that isn't technically prescribed by the writer or the director, but that is what brings in that X factor to that particular scene. And it can be vocal, it can be physical, it can be in terms of how you enter the scene, how you exit the scene. You guys have seen Seinfeld? Kramer. So Kramer has that thing where he barges into the room all of a sudden, right? He just runs into the room and he opens it and he stumbles into position, right? And that's how he enters every time he enters that house. Right? He doesn't need to do it. Even if it's just coming in to invite Seinfeld for breakfast, that's how he does it, right? So that's the quirk that he's built for that particular character, right? So that's going against the grain. So backstory is what it's an exercise that you probably have to do once for yourself in as much detail as you can. Then discuss it with your writer and your director, because they will also have to be okay with the kind of backstory that you write for yourself. And there will be clues as to things that you should include in his backstory from reading the entire script. Try to understand a little bit of psychology. It'll really come in handy, and try to incorporate that into your preparation as well. Find, like, I'm sure you guys listen to music, right? Is anyone here from the music club? Yes. Right. So Vishak, when every song has a key, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys, every song has a key, right? So you can, based on your octaves, you can every song is performed at a particular note, a key, right? So does everyone know what a note is?
Yes.
Yeah. So you have a la 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 la. So any of those, where does your song sing? I mean, where does your song start? Right. So that's your note. You know. So just like that, every performance has a center, okay, and it only goes up or down from there. And this thai or whatever it is, this changes in all of us as we grow older, younger, based on our particular whatever's happening in our life at that particular moment in time. How we are generally, it changes. So figure out what your character's note is, figure out that tenor, because that's very important. If that changes from scene to scene, I mean, that's the clearest indication if there's something going wrong. So if something feels off when you're doing a scene, like, no, this doesn't feel right, it's mostly because it's either too much or too less. Writing that backstory will help you understand, okay, this is the person that this is where this person is in his life or her life, and therefore this is how I'm supposed to be behaving when it comes to, this particular person. So whatever we've talked about right now is in a very, very broad sense, like 90-95% of what you'll be doing if you're serious about doing acting or any kind of performing for that matter. A lot of it depends on the preparation, right, on the rehearsing, right? The other 5-10%, when you're on stage in front of the camera, do not think. Like, don't think about one breath, don't think about 3 acts, don't think about anything. It should be muscle memory by then, so rehearse till it's muscle memory. We talked about transitioning between thoughts. We talked about there being thoughts between two thoughts. So when you're rehearsing, try to really force yourself to really think of those things. So when you're performing, those thoughts go by without you even realizing it. But once you're on stage, please don't think too much, just have fun with it. And even if it's the most morose play or morose film, as long as you're having fun with it, that it's going well. All right, and that's about it. And trust your gut. And when it comes to your performance, be your biggest critic, but always trust your gut. If even when you're reading your lines, if you feel that there's something wrong with it, again, if you feel there's something wrong with it, there is most probably something wrong with it. If you feel that way, don't say that, this will do, because then it's no fun. There's this technique called the MEISNER technique, which you guys can probably do at some time when you're doing your plays or whatever. Just take the most simple line, okay? Hey, this is a pen, and say it in as many different ways as you can. What you're doing there is you're not focusing on the words, you're focusing on the subtext. You can say, hey, this is a pen. I can say, hey, this is a pen. Or I can say, hey, this is a pen. I can do it 100 different ways, and each of those things could mean different things, right? So when you guys are practicing, it's just as a warm-up exercise, try doing these things. You can find enough and more material online about improv and other exercises that will help you guys get into that groove before you actually start reading your lines from the play or whatever it is. Remember to have fun with it. That's about it. I mean, you're here to have fun, and as long as you're having fun, maybe you'll do a good job.
How do you recommend pursuing acting, maybe, because you did it as an engineer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how would you recommend one goes about finding something, like finding a perfect fit? Because I think your trajectory was like engineer, and then you joined a theatre club, and then following that, the theatre club was basically linked up with an association that called you for auditions, and hence you landed the role, right?
Correct. So I think a lot of it depends upon staying at it. Okay, I mean, if you're really serious about doing it professionally, I will tell you right now that it's not easy. Having a job, a 9-to-5 job, like a traditional job, gives you a sense of security that might lull you from really taking that leap of faith. And once you get into that sense of comfort, it's very difficult for you to get out of that sense of comfort.
Right,
you know?
sure.
So if you're really serious about this, I would say stay uncomfortable. Always be on the edge with regards to, yeah, okay, fine, I have a job, I'm working from 9 to 5, but I have rehearsals at 7. So I need to get to rehearsals at 7. I need to do my rehearsals. I need to get back home by like midnight, wake up at 5 again, and go to work. So it doesn't need to be you quitting your job and doing everything, putting aside everything else just for this. At least that was the philosophy that I followed, because having that sense of security helps you in a certain way. It helps you not lose your mind completely, and it also helps you stay afloat in a very practical sense, in terms of financial and logistical whatever. You wouldn't need to depend on your folks, and all of us being Indian family members, having Indian parents. I'm sure all of us have parents who will not be too thrilled at the idea of their child wanting to become an actor or whatever, right? So that financial freedom definitely helps. But what I did was I stuck on to a schedule where I had rehearsal almost every day, and we did plays throughout the year. And I was going to do that for almost I did that for almost 2 years. And then auditions came about, wherein they reached out to all of the theatre companies in Chennai, and that's how I auditioned, and that's how I got that particular role. But it doesn't necessarily need to be that way either. I mean, I was thinking of quitting my job, going to this B school called ISB, because they had a course in entertainment and media. Do that and then get into a production house and go that way. That was the idea. But luckily that wasn't how it panned out. So I would say, just keep at it, down and just keep learning. I don't think you need to, it has to be one or the other. I don't think that's you need to do that, because some of the greatest actors we know, be it Sam Jackson or Morgan Freeman or any of these gentlemen, they started acting when they were in their 40s. If it's something that you're truly passionate about, then it doesn't need to be something that you give up on for family or for a job or whatever, and vice versa.